That was fun. Thank
That was
you.
great. I loved it.
Yay.
That was so
Yeah.
fun.
I told you it would be just two
I
girls talking
know.
about the market.
I just love talking about it.
Yeah. Hi, and welcome to Real Women Trade. This platform is about one thing, showing women that actually trade with discipline, structure, and execution. Today, I have with me Marilee from Foundational Trading. So before we get into your trading, Marilee, I want to start somewhere different. You talk a lot about slow life or life slow, picnics on a Tuesday, chasing the sunset, vinyl records. What did this morning look like for you?
This morning was a little bit different. I actually just got back from a cruise over the weekend with my family. So it was kind of a putting things back together day.
Yeah.
So not typical, but it's pretty close, I'd say. I mean, generally my mornings look like I wake up. I have two boys who are 9 and 12. And so, I've got a couple more days until they're out of school, but usually I wake up and make them their lunches and then, have a little bit of sit out on the patio, read my Bible for a little bit and then take them to school, come back. Usually I make a coffee. Sometimes I'll go for a walk in the backyard. We have a lake down at the end of our neighborhood. So I'll go hang out there for, a little bit. Cause usually I get back around 9 and I've got like 30 minutes before market opens. So I'll take that time and just kind of be, have some peace and quiet. And then usually that's the start of my day and I'll do some work for, I don't know, 3 hours, something like that. And then I'll take another break.
Great.
So,
I know.
yeah.
I love the slow life. I really enjoy it after having had been in the hustle and bustle of a lot of people that are work 40 hours a week,
Yeah.
So what does your mornings look like now that wasn't possible a year ago, or were they the same?
I'd say my mornings are pretty much the same. I bartended for about 10 years, 12, actually, no, it's longer than that. I bartended at my most recent job that I quit. My last place that I bartended was about 10 years, but before that I worked for probably four other years in Nashville where I grew up. But I obviously my boys are now 9 and 12, but over the course of when I bartended and was working, trading my time for money, they were small. So I needed to have the flexibility to be home with them during the day when they were really small before they went to school. So mornings I'd say are the same. I'd say the biggest change for me has been actually the weekends. So I guess my weekends have been other people's, daytimes, but I would work every weekend, and when my boys are now, in elementary and middle school, when they were really small, it was great because they weren't in school and I could spend all day with them and I would see them all during the week and then I would work on the weekends and at night. But once they got into school age, they're gone during the day and then they're home at nights and on the weekends. And that was like flipped my schedule.
Yeah.
So the past several years since they've been old enough to go to school, really the weekends have been where my family life has suffered because I can't do anything with them on the weekends. I'd leave at like 11 o'clock. I'd come home at like 10 at night, and they're already asleep. So that's really been the biggest change for me is like waking up on a Saturday and Sunday where I normally would be leaving for work. And I just get to hang out with them and we get to go on walks and go to the pool and like do all these fun things. And it's like, that has been the biggest change.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What a great life. I mean, who wouldn't want that?
I am extremely blessed. I will definitely say that. And every day I wake up, I'm like, I am so grateful that I can.
Yeah.
It's not even it's just more so the flexibility, right? If I want to go and spend the day with, if I want to take them to Legoland in the summertime, on a Tuesday, I can. If I want to choose to not work, if I'm not in the mood to look at charts, I don't have to. If I'm not in the mood, if I'm in the mood to lay in bed all day, I can, right? It's a flexibility of like, I'm able to do what I feel like doing, which is the freedom.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. I wish I had had it way back in the day. So like, let's say you're at a barbecue, how do you describe to someone what you actually do?
In a nutshell, I teach people how to read charts and how to understand the macro of, markets, of what drives markets. And I teach people how to piece those two things together to be able to execute a trade or even a long-term position, because you could do a short-term, medium-term, long-term trade. And so essentially the idea is pairing the charts with the macro so you can have a clearer picture of all those time frames.
Mm-hmm. And how do they usually react? The person you're telling this to.
Most of them are like, "What's a chart?" That's definitely the most common response. But usually it's like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, have you, do you own Nvidia or something like that? Or like, have you heard of, Tesla?" Or, the second most common one is like, "Well, what should I buy?"
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, it depends."
Right.
Yeah. What do you like? How long's your time frame? How much money do you want to spend? What's your risk tolerance? All those things.
Yeah. You posted recently that the more time people spend in nature, the happier they are, and that the whole point of building cash flow is that you can actually spend that time. And why is that framing? Why are you framing your life that way instead of the frame of build wealth, retire rich?
I'm a big I'm a big, I guess, fan, or I guess a better way to say it is like, I think it's really important to enjoy the journey. When I was young, my mom, I'm one of 9 kids, so we had a lot of kids growing up, and my mom actually homeschooled all of us. So she was the most present figure in my life, obviously, when I was growing up. And one of the things that she always would just, reiterate over and over is, find something you enjoy doing and just pursue that until
Mm-hmm.
you no longer enjoy it, and then find the next thing you enjoy and pursue that. So it was always a big focus on enjoying the journey and like the process of what you're doing, not like you want to get here, so I just got to like muscle my way there and like grin and bear it kind of thing. Like that was never taught to me, which I'm extremely grateful for. And so even as I got older, you know, it was a big focus, and it took time, obviously, but a big focus of mine to try to enjoy each phase of life that I'm in. And that really, especially now as a parent, that translates a lot to quality of life, and even more so to how I show up as a parent when I'm with my kids, right? If I show up with my kids and we're, say we're going to the pool on a Saturday afternoon, but I'm thinking about this bill, and I'm thinking about this stressor, and I'm thinking about these other things that are like frustrating me, and this person pissed me off. And, even though that has nothing to do with my kids, they're absolutely going to feel that frustration, and they won't know that it's not about them. They'll just feel that I'm frustrated at them.
Yeah.
And so that's like a really big thing that I didn't want to transfer to my kids, is for them to feel that stress of other things, because that happened to me in the past relationship that I was in, is that my partner didn't know how to handle his own stress, and it came out every which way in the home. And that was horrible, and I hated it. So that's something that I'm very aware of. And I think that doing the work to make sure that you're enjoying every part of your life to the best that you can, and changing the parts that you can so that you enjoy those parts more, has like an infinite ROI.
Yeah. Tell me, I'm curious, what do your boys think about you trading?
My 9-year-old, they look at charts that I haven't really made them focus much on it yet. I plan on doing that this summer, is having them go through actually the curriculum that I've made. So they're gonna go through, at least the older one, maybe not the younger one yet, but they'll always be like, "Oh, mom's doing charts." Like that's like how they view it. It's like, mom's doing charts. And then, they'll watch me, I'm on the computer looking at a chart or something, and they'll be like, "Oh, are you making money?" I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
kind of yes, kind of no, depends on what you look at."
Yeah.
So some positions, yeah. And they're like, oh, well, is it going up or down? I'm like, both. It's
Yeah.
both. It goes up and down. So they don't really quite grasp it, but they just know that I do charts is
Yeah.
what they,
Yeah. That's cool. So
yeah.
take me back before any of this, before you started FTA, before the YouTube content, before doubling your bartending income. What were you actually doing when you realized that moment shifted, like from bartending to trading? Full-time trading.
Well, it's kind of it's a long process actually. Trading actually started as a hobby for me. I was introduced to Forex through a friend of a friend. I had been in network marketing prior. I had my dad was an entrepreneur. I had friends who were in network marketing, so like I kind of understood that whole work for yourself concept. And I was like, well, that's freedom. I want that flexibility. So I tried a couple things. I tried network marketing, and network marketing actually really transformed my mindset, I would say, on a lot of things, like my perspective of personal growth and pursuing growth and vision and just a lot of things on the mindset side were taught to me in network marketing. But that wasn't obviously what I really wanted to do. There's no passion there for that. So I tried a couple other things, and then I was actually introduced to Forex through a friend of a friend in 2015. And my friend, it was him and then like 3 other guys and then me. And we would get on like a Skype call like once a week and we'd look at charts. And the one that was the most experienced would teach us all these things and his technical analysis. And it really like clicked for me when he was teaching about Elliott Wave and Fibonacci retracements, which is like just so random, like the most random thing. But I remember he pulled a Fibonacci retracement on a move, and it was something that already passed, and the move pulled back exactly to the 61.8.
Yeah,
and I was just like, how? And like it obviously, like I was super early on. There were so many other things that I like. I didn't even quite understand Elliott Wave, but I was just like, that's crazy. And so that was really, I think, where I was just like, this is a really ever-changing puzzle. And like that fascinated me. And so that was really my start into technical analysis. And that was my main focus for a really long time, was just technical analysis and charts. And I had my son a couple years after that in 2017, my younger son. So I kind of, it was a hobby, like I said. And so it kind of like went to the back burner, life happened, things like that. And then I really came back to markets in like 2020, 2021, I guess. Got introduced to options, long-term options, so leaps, and then definitely got burned a lot. I didn't know what I was doing. There was no sense of macro at all. So like I'm like out, 6 to 12 months on this contract. And I'm like, it'll go up. And then, 2022 happened, and it was that bear market just kept going down. And I was like, I just lost thousands of dollars by just sitting here watching it. So, and that kind of made me be like, okay, well, like, what is this? What are these options? Like, I need to understand them more. I need to understand more long-term. And so that really kind of started me into, focusing more on the macro. And then I even went even shorter term. I'm like, let me go into how these day trades work. And I dabbled in futures for a little while. I day traded futures, day traded options for a little bit. And it's funny, I think that a lot of people, if not the majority of people, who are unfamiliar with the trading space, they hear the word trading and they think day trading.
Right.
Like there's no other way of trading in anyone's mind. They're like, oh, you're just clicking buttons all day, every day. And then, that's it. I can't do that. Right. And so I really feel strongly about making sure that like, at least I'm making it known that that's not the only type of trading. Right. It's not even the most, I wouldn't say, it's definitely the highest stress type of trading, in my opinion.
Right.
But after going super long term, super short term, and like kind of dabbling in all of those areas, I ended up landing on swing trading options, and that's where I am right now.
do you think that was a byproduct of your personality? Like, I'm always interested in why a person chooses day trading over swing trading.
Yeah, I think day trading is a very specific type of personality and lifestyle. Like, I have a friend who crushes it in day trading futures. Single guy, young guy, travels a lot, very like regimented, right? Very, very in control of his own emotions and his own like, you know, the emotions that come up during trading, but like even his own psychology. So it's a very emotionally intense, I'm sure, as you know, type of trading, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that I'm relatively strong on the psychological side. Like I've done a lot of, inner work and all that stuff. Like I'm very aware of those things. Doesn't mean they don't happen, but I'm at least aware of them.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was I didn't love day trading because of the time that it needed, right? And for me, I have 2 kids. Like I said, I love the flexibility of just being able to be like, I don't feel like trading today. I have to go to my kids', school all day. Like I can't. And so if I were to be day trading and that was my, my source of income, if I took the day off, I would make no money. And that to me was like, I'm just trading my time for money at this point. That's the same as bartending.
Right.
So to me, it was way more attractive. 1, from a stress perspective, because it's much less stress. 2, from a flexibility perspective, to enter a trade or whatever, multiple trades, and hold it for days or weeks or even months. And the trade-off there, in my eyes, is when you're doing shorter term day trades, right? You're focused very technically, right? You're very, very technical focused for charting, which is, why I was interested in doing it in the first place. But as you lengthen your trades, right, from holding it for a day to holding it days, weeks, months, the further out you go, the more you have to understand macro, at least to a degree.
Yeah.
Because markets by nature are mean reverting, right? They go up, they go down, especially on short time frames.
Yeah.
If you go long enough out, they go up and to the right, right? Over a long enough time horizon, they go up and to the right. But somewhere in the middle, they go up for a couple months, a couple weeks, and then they go down for a couple months or a couple weeks. And you have to be able to, in my eyes, the way that I view it is, I have to be able to understand what's going to drive the market over the medium term, 3, 6, 9 months. And then also understand the technicals of, is there a setup here that's supported by the macro? And so that's kind of where the blend came. And I love it. It's very, I don't think satisfying is the right word, but it's very like fulfilling to be able to like layer multiple things. And it's like, they're all pointing in the right direction. It's like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great explanation. Yeah. I like that. I'm studying your Instagram, and in the last year, you've gross doubled what you ever made bartending. You paid cash for a couch that you actually love. You spent a weekend or weekday afternoon at your adopted parents' house while the kids and grandkids got to swim. So of those 3, which one hit you the hardest emotionally, and why?
For sure, the pool. The afternoon at the pool, 100%.
Why is that?
One of my biggest values is spending quality time. To me, I have a very could maybe call it like lackadaisical view on money. Like I just, it comes and goes. It is what it is. But quality of life is the most important thing. And obviously that is influenced by, finances and things like that. But it also, you can choose for it to not be that influenced by finances if you want. So, the afternoon at the pool with, my adopted parents and my kids playing with their grandkids and things like that was a real moment where I was just like, this is life. This is great. Yeah. Like you can't buy those experiences. like money helps with a lot of things, but it doesn't help with everything.
Right.
And so I think, and like I said, I very much value quality time. I very much value, enjoying the process and every little part of life. And for me, quality time and spending that time where I couldn't before hit me for sure the hardest. And I am just extremely grateful for that, to be able to do that.
So would you say that was the moment, or was there a different moment where you thought, oh, this is really working? This trading thing I can make this happen?
I don't know if there was a specific moment that I thought that, which is weird because like my brokerage has tripled over the past 12 to 18 months or something. So it's like, obviously there's something I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. I don't really have that thought of like, I'm great at this, because I know there's so much to learn. Like, and I think it's just for me, I don't really focus on like, I've talked about this before, but like my way is not the right way, right? Like there's no right way to trade, right? There's no perfect strategy. And so for me, when I spend time in the markets, it's almost like a constant adaptation to how the markets are moving and how the markets are changing. So to me, it's not like I made it, because next month the markets could change and then I have to adapt again. And then I have to adapt again. So it's like, even if I'm doing it right now, that's no guarantee. So I'm a very, I guess maybe not too hard on myself, but I don't overly celebrate. But, I do think that there's something to be said with developing the skill set. And so I think really the moment where I was like, I think I actually have a solid skill set here, was when I was approached by a previous mentor of mine who has a mastermind. And his mastermind covers many things, investing long-term, more so learning fundamentals of companies and how to identify certain companies that are, long-term investments. Some stuff about credit. There was just multiple things that he taught, and I was in his group previously to learn some of those things. And then, I ended up leaving. He reached out to me and was like, hey, there is a demand within the members, because they want to learn technical analysis and they want to learn how to chart. And that's not my forte. I don't enjoy doing that. Would you want to come in and teach them? And to me, I was like, there's like 400 members in this group. And I was just like,
that's a great compliment. Yeah.
Me? So, and I had never taught before or anything like that. I had just done it as, on my own. And so that was kind of like well, clearly someone thinks I can do this, even if I don't think I'm that skilled. And then from there, I created a whole beginner curriculum for his mastermind. And then I taught, weekly calls for years. And so then, like, obviously through the process of teaching, it made me more confident in my skill set of teaching and of being able to break down very complex ideas, because the markets are filled with very complex, topics. It's not an easy thing to learn. So through that teaching process, I was able to identify a skill set of mine, which is being able to break those things down in very easy to digest chunks for beginners. And that's really, I think, where part of where my zone of genius lies, is being able to, one, have the patience to go through it and have my students ask me like a dozen questions about the same thing, but it has to be iterated in multiple ways, there's so much nuance there. You could say support and resistance, but then there's like this little question, well, what if it's here? Well, why isn't it here versus here? There's so many things. And so anyway, I think that's where a lot of my skill set lies on the teaching side, is being able to do that. And I really love it. So that's just kind of where I am now.
Well, that brings us right into, talking about beginners. Your opinion is that they should start with price action and candlesticks before anything else. So for the listener that's using 6 indicators on a chart, that they don't understand. Make your case. Why naked charts first?
Markets, actually, I'll tell a quick story because this is actually
Sure.
It's a story that I was told actually, but it does emphasize my point, which is the markets are about buyers and sellers, and even technical analysis, even support and resistance, which is very important, but even support and resistance, and especially things like indicators, are not, they're not like set in stone, right? They're not guaranteed. And so when you base a trade off of an indicator alone, you're missing so much of the picture. And, so the story is there was this man that traded soybean futures, right? And he was very macro focused, and he would trade soybean futures based on, headlines and things like that. And so he was like, I think I should learn more technical analysis because I don't really know anything about charts. So he brings in this technical analysis expert to teach him about charts. And the expert is like, here's support, here's resistance. Once price comes down to support, it's going to bounce back off. And the soybean trader's like, what do you mean it's going to bounce back off? He's like, well, because it's support. It's support. So it holds, and then price goes back up. And the soybean trader's like, I don't think so. He's like, no, just watch. It's coming down. And so it gets down to support, and the soybean trader shorts like a million shares or whatever, a million contracts. And it drops right through support. And he's like, why didn't it hold? He's like, and it just emphasizes the point of like, there's no one indicator. There's no one, technical analysis tool that will guarantee anything. Ultimately, it comes back down to buyers and sellers, who's in control and who's pushing things in what direction. And when you start with candlesticks, you understand how to read a daily candle that is say a hammer candle, right? Price pushed down, it gets pushed back up. But what does that mean? What's the story there, right? The story of that candle is sellers initially started, they took over the day, they're selling, they're pushing price down. And then what happens? They lose control. And then buyers step in, they overwhelm the sellers, and the price goes back up and then some. Right? That in and of itself tells you a lot about the market. And then you layer that on top of, well, did it happen at a spot where we expect buyers to step in, where there is support? Is there other things that are strengthening the thesis and the story that buyers are back in control and are going to push price up? So I think it's a really important place to start, and it's not glamorous. And that's why I think a lot of people are like, oh, I just want to have something that shows me this is where you should buy. And it's cutting corners, and I completely disagree with it. So I have no problem telling people that.
Okay, great explanation. You posted that students come to you wanting the advanced stuff and can't identify this support and resistance yet. Why is this the hill that so many beginners die on?
Kind of back to what I was just saying. It's people want something to tell them what to do. Right? They want an indicator to tell them when to buy. They want a Elliott Wave level to tell them when to sell. Right? And they think that if they learn the Elliott Wave, this is specifically what a lot of my students come to me with, is I want to learn Elliott Wave. And first of all, Elliott Wave is it is not based on historical data. It's not based on the chart. It's based on ratios and probabilities. I mean, everything's probability, but it's based on human psychology and certain ratios, and it's very complex. And the problem I have with a student wanting to learn Elliott Wave first is that, one, if you don't know how to draw it right, you draw it one way and I draw it another way, there's no right or wrong way. And you don't know whether you're right or wrong. Right? And then if you take your potentially wrong or right, doesn't matter. If you take your projection of this is where I'm going to sell based on my indicator, based on my Elliott Wave, and say price reaches that level, and we're in the middle of a bull run, right? We've got macro supportive, we've got liquidity supportive, growth is strong, inflation's low, and you hit your level and you sell.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes up 100% past that.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to be kicking yourself.
Yep.
Or the opposite.
And they're done that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. We all have. Absolutely. And then on the flip side, if you have your target up there and you're getting, say you're 25% away and you're like, nope, Elliott Wave says it's going to go here. I'm going to hold it. But then we have growth deteriorating. We have the macro, like headlines, we're at war. All these things that are actually drivers of markets is pulling price back down, and you refuse to sell because it didn't hit your target.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you're just round tripping all of your profits, right?
Right.
And that can be said about any single indicator, but especially if you don't understand what price is doing, you don't understand the basics of where do buyers step in, where do sellers step in, and why, what drives markets and why, and you don't have any understanding of that intuitively yourself, you're just looking at something outside of yourself, like an indicator, to tell you what to do, you're going to lose way more than you win.
Yeah. Yeah. I love your explanations. Maybe I need to take Elliott Wave with you or something.
It's a great tool, but it's definitely, it can't be the only tool.
Yeah. Yeah. So if a student comes to you, let's say it's a parent with kids and a job, where are you going to start them at?
Everyone starts the same. So the way that FTA is structured is it's a video curriculum, starting with, candlesticks. And then we move on to, how to read patterns on charts. So you start with the smallest piece, and then you add a little bit more, and then you add a little bit more, and the knowledge builds on itself. And so that's a self-paced course, right? You go through it, there's worksheets and quizzes. And so if you have kids, you could do it at night, you can do it whenever. So that's part of the curriculum, that the knowledge part is on your own pace. So there's the knowledge aspect that we teach in FTA, and then we have the application aspect. When you see this pattern, what does that mean? When you see price at support, what do you think? Like, how do you take what you're seeing, now that you know what you're seeing, how do you take what you're looking at and draw some sort of, if this happens, if price bounces at support, then I can expect this. So it's you're applying what you're learning now. You're not just identifying support and resistances here and here. You say what happens there, right? So then that's kind of the next layer. And then the third layer is the synthesis, right? Then you're taking, I understand this candlestick is a hammer candle, and that tells me buyers have taken over. I see it at a support, which tells me I can likely expect price to move up from here. And then the third layer is, so then how do you turn that into any sort of trade, right? Based on your time frame, based on, what is the macro doing? Based on, which expiration should I choose? Which strike price should I choose, and why? So then you layer in that execution aspect of it. And so that's really the sequence. It's like you identify what you're looking at, you understand how to take that information and create an idea from it. And then you take all those pieces together to come up with a trade plan. And so that's really the process that all of our students go through. But specifically when it comes to, say, a mom with 2 kids versus a single guy, we do a roadmap call, which is where me and the student, whoever it is, we go through, what does your lifestyle look like? Do you have kids? Do you have a 9-to-5? Do you not? Right? All of those things that are going to influence your learning process, your trading journey. And then once we kind of figure out where those constraints are, like obviously a mom that has 2 kids has more time constraints than someone else.
Right.
Based on that, which style of trading would fit you best, right? Are you looking for high turnover, like high velocity trading, where you're entering and exiting trades frequently because you have the time available to do it? Or do you not have time and you might say, well, I really want a day trade. Well, I'm sorry, that's not possible right now, right? You probably shouldn't start with that now. But that doesn't mean you can't be trading. And so then that's where the focus shifts to, based on what your current situation is, this style of trading fits best. And based on swing trading, day trading, or long-term investing, what should you focus on? And that goes back to technicals versus macro, right? If you're doing short-term day trading, you should really be focused on technicals and learning that skill set. If you can't do that and you're focused on long-term, you should really be focused on understanding the macro. And then if you're in the middle, which most people are, there's a balance of both, right? And then we lay out, based on which one which one fits you most, here's what you should focus on for the macro, study these things, focus on applying this. Here's what you should focus on for the technicals, focus on studying this, apply this, and then here's how we put them together. And then we do a lot of that with live support calls, right? We talk through a lot of nuance there. So we do multiple weekly support calls. And then I usually do at least one market overview call through the week. So like I will share my thoughts, not because I'm amazing, but because I want to teach my students, how do you think through? What thoughts and questions should you be asking when you see the ISM data come in at 54.5? What should you think there? How do you take that number and then tie it into a technical and then tie it into a trade, right? So those calls are generally very helpful for just kind of showing that thought process so they can then take it and apply it for themselves.
How long do most of your students stay with you?
I've had students that have stayed with me for over a year. I started in April, so they've been with me since the beginning. And then I've had some students that have stayed a couple months. I will say that the main or the only probably but the reasoning behind leaving prior to 6 months is either two things. One, they don't have the time that they thought they could commit to it. Or two, they're like, it's not for me. Both
really?
Of those, I have, yeah. So some of it, and I know it's that one's more rare. It's less of that, and usually it's people who are more so doing it wanting to learn for fun, and then they realize that it's actually a lot harder than they thought, and they're like, this isn't fun anymore. Yeah, and I have no problem with that. I'm not gonna definitely not gonna try to get you to stay.
Sure, yeah. Trading is not for everybody.
Right. So I think a lot of the students that I have stay with me for more than 6 months, even though I definitely, my recommendation to new students is give yourself 6 months. Give yourself 6 months, 5 to 6 hours a week. If you do that, you will have an incredible base of knowledge in 6 months that you can then take and do what you want. You can buy and sell shares if you want. You can do options if you want. You can apply that skill set to futures if you want. There's so many things you can do with it, but I view it like a semester of school, like 6 months. Give yourself that amount of time, view it as a semester of school, take it seriously. And once you do that, you'll be unrecognizable in how you participate in markets. Like truly, it's truly, but a lot of students stay with me. One, because they like how I teach. Two, because some people, it takes a little bit longer to understand the nuances of macro. And so they just really enjoy hearing my perspective. They enjoy, understanding the questions and kind of how, when markets change, how do we adapt? Because markets will change, right?
Sure.
It's just guaranteed.
Yeah. You've posted that women have a natural edge in trading, which is pattern recognition, multitasking, and noticing many things at once, How have you actually seen that play out with your students, or is that just a marketing line?
I speak for myself. I will say a lot of my students are women. I definitely have male students and they're great, but it's definitely a different type of learner, I will say. I wouldn't say that necessarily that women trade differently than men. In my experience, I think it's more so in the approach to markets, right? Men are very good at compartmentalizing. They're very good at staying focused for a long period of time. They're very good at being non-emotional. Sometimes it's hard. It's hard for anyone when they do day trading to not be emotional, but they're better at it generally. And they have, generally they have a larger ego, not in the bad sense, but just more the sense of like, they're like, I'm not going to give up, right? They're like competitive in that way. which is all great, right? Those are all great attributes to have when you're trading.
Sure.
But for women, I do think they have a natural ability to recognize patterns and to multitask and to be able to, especially when it comes to swing trading and macro, be able to synthesize multiple things together, right? Like just as a mom, like you have to be thinking about, what am I doing for dinner? What time do they need to get picked up from school? Will they have this thing after school? Well, I also have to do this. I'm in the middle of my book. I need to make sure I read this. And that you're just doing so many things at one time. And that's very hard for men to do generally. Or at least it's easier for women to do. And so in my experience, the I wouldn't say the struggle, but the hurdle to get over when teaching women about trading isn't the actual skill set at all. It's the fact that they don't think they can do it. Right? Most women don't think they can trade.
Why?
Almost
Why? Why do women think that?
I think they're intimidated. I think that they see this as a male-dominated thing, and they think that they have to, say, be day trading, right? As a woman, like if I was to look at someone who, is day trading or futures trading every single day and they're like glued to their screen, like that's not something women really enjoy doing, I would say. Not all women, but in general, I would say women tend to be a lot more like, well, I just don't really feel like doing that right now. Me, I don't feel like doing that right now. Right? Like I don't want to do that. So they think that if they're to trade, they have to trade this way. And I think that turns women off because they think that's the only way to trade. When in reality, you can learn the skill set and you can do it in the pockets of your life if you choose to. Right. And I think it's a less of an issue of capability. It's not an issue of capability. It's an issue of showing or making sure that women know, like, you absolutely can learn the skill set and apply it while you keep your current lifestyle. That's, I think, the biggest misunderstanding.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. There's a phrase that you use, you called it execution while learning. And most teachers say, learn first and then execute. Why are you doing it the opposite way? And what does that look like in FTA?
I'm a strong believer in hands-on learning. I am, not to say I'm a strong believer in being, reckless. So there's definitely a little bit of, there's guardrails there. But especially with something that, and I've just learned this over the years of my own learning, but also through teaching as well, is learning and seeing, like watching a video about support and resistance, even listening to me talk about support and resistance and explain it to you. You can say in your head, I get that. It makes sense. But the minute you go and sit by yourself in your chair and you look at an empty chart, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. It all just goes away. Yeah. And that can be very discouraging for people, right? It absolutely can be like, well, clearly I can't do this, which is not true. Like you absolutely can. But the way that you build up that confidence of, oh, I can do this, is actually by doing the thing, right? You have to put your hands on it and do it. You have to mark up charts every week, right? Even if they're wrong, even if you think they're wrong, even though if they are wrong, it doesn't matter. You still have to just do the thing. And so what that looks like in FTA specifically is, I have a study tracker that I give my students, and it says, based on what week you are, what week, what month, whatever, here's what you need to be doing each week. 30 minutes on charts, an hour on a lesson, 30 minutes on worksheets, whatever it is. I break it up into chunks so you know exactly what you need to be doing. Whether or not they do it is a different story. But there's the framework there of, here's where you should be spending your time practically so that you can have, the lessons and the worksheets of the knowledge part, but then the hands-on experience of marking up a chart. And then obviously as they progress, it's like, okay, you're going to mark up a chart, but you're going to tell me why. And then you're going to mark up a chart, tell me why, and then tell me what you would do in a trade from here on out. So it's a building process, but it just goes back to that whole identifying something, applying it, and then synthesizing multiple things together to create a thesis. And it's just expressed in different ways throughout FTA.
Mm-hmm. So are they paper trading at first, or are they having live money in?
It depends. Some people just want to jump in with their real money, and that they want to do that. And they're like, I actually just want to get in there and see how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
So for those people, we obviously start with, smaller contracts, right? Cheaper contracts
Mm-hmm.
that are just more so like practice trades.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also, you can do paper trading. I definitely recommend paper trading. There's certain brokerages like E-Trade that you can actually add a contract to, like a watch list. And then it's almost like you type in the contract that you want to buy, and it adds it to a watch list. And then you can track, is it going up? What's the percentages? Is it going down? That's one way. Another way is to use the trading view, just long and short tool, where you basically say, I think it's going to go up this amount, or here's my risk. So we use that as well. You can do that. There's a bunch of different ways. And it really goes back to the person, right? Some people want to be like, I'm not putting any money into real trading until I feel more comfortable. And okay, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I personally recommend that the sooner you start using real money, the better, even if it's just cheap contracts, just because it's very, very different psychologically from paper trading. And the quicker you can get your hands dirty on what that feels like, the quicker, and especially placing orders and understanding how to do a stop loss and, rolling a contract and things like that. The more you do that, the more comfortable you get with it. And the more comfortable you get, obviously your learning will increase past that. The more comfortable you get, the quicker.
In March, as you know, we had a pretty big pullback. And so when the markets are red and ugly, you tell people that it's not permission to just ignore the markets. And that's exactly when they should be studying. So what does that look like for you personally?
Personally, what it looks like is a lot of diving into, again, the macro, right? Like if you are only focused on technicals and you see a big pullback, right? There's obviously, you can look at price action and you can learn to identify when the pivot's coming. But the difference between understanding whether or not this pullback is tipping into a bear market, right? Are we tipping into a bear market now because of this pullback? Is this the top? Was that the top? And now we're pulling back? Or are we in an environment in the markets globally where this is a pullback for the next leg higher, right? That's what is like, it's almost like, you see it on every single time frame, but it's like, that's really the question. Are we in a pullback by the dip, or are we tipping into a bear market and we should shift into risk off?
Right.
And you can't know that purely based on price, right? And so when markets are red, a lot of my focus shifts to confirming or revisiting a lot of the macro kind of data points that I look at to say, where has anything shifted from the last time we've talked about this? And if not, are we still in a buy the dip regime? And if so, that's where my thesis begins, right? That's where I teach my students is when the markets are red, you should have, you should know where to look to find these data points that are going to tell you we are actually in a pullback for the next leg higher or not, right? So that's where my focus tends to go. Obviously, if positions are red, It's part of the game, right? We play this game where you're going to get green trades and you're going to get red trades. And the more you can layer on top, the macro is in line with higher. The data is in line with higher. The technicals are in line with higher. Then when you have the volatility of the red days, you got to learn to take it, right? That's part of the game. So
yeah. So I'm just curious, back in 07, 08, 09, when I was trading it and the market was, really coming down into, I would say, in my opinion, it didn't really bottom till 2012. If and when that we come into that type of market, how are you going to advise your students to trade that?
One would be to, like, when we see those signals shift from we're in a bull market to in a bear market, one will be to take profits on any position that's not a 5-year longer like hold, right? So those are like long-term equities. Even then, I would still suggest like trimming. You know what I mean? Like building up that cash position is like top priority. Building up cash. And then the second would be definitely patience, like, because, you know, when things shift from bullish to bearish, there's always that period of time where it's like, are we still going up? Are we not still going up? Is there enough, you know, so there's like the period of time, and that choppy period is where a lot of traders get chopped out because things, the signals on the macro side and even on the technical side are very mixed, right? And so it's very hard to have patience and just sit on your hands in those times, because it's you feel like you should always be in a trade, especially new traders. They're like, I should always be in a trade. I need to find a setup. When in reality, sometimes there is no setup, right? There's no good setup. So building cash would be the first one. And then second of all, you know, like I said, I tend to trade options. And so I would personally be leaning towards puts, medium to long-term puts. And then in the meantime, probably do some shorter term directional trades, depending on, you know, data and things like that. But, heavy cash for sure. And then, you know, using options on the way down, and then identifying through technicals and things like that, where are the points that I want to redeploy some of this cash into, again, longer term positions or longer term trades to the upside.
Yeah. I love it. That's what I would tell them also. Yeah, you gotta do puts as well as calls. So, I know you have mentioned this, but I just want to reiterate it because it's not talked about enough in the trading community. So you have said that to actually learn to trade, it takes 4 to 6 months and 4 to 5 hours a week minimum to put into it, you know, to practice and do your charts and everything. So why isn't anyone else saying this?
Because it's not glamorous. It's not what people want to hear. There's a stigma in the trading community, and I don't know if a stigma is the right word, but it's definitely this. It is made to seem like it's easy, you know, and the actual practical part of it, clicking a button, that's easy. You click a button, you enter a trade, right? That's the easy part.
Right.
And so it's easy to say, I just clicked a couple buttons and I made $3,000, right? People like that, right? Because it basically says you don't have to work hard. And so if I'm someone who's saying, you don't have to work hard, come follow me and I'll tell you how I click a button. That is like, oh, sweet. I don't have to work hard. I'm just going to do what she says. Yeah. Right. And it's just the way that it is. And one, I feel very strongly about being transparent, right? Like I will be straight up honest with you, and I have no problem doing it. And I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but if I do, I don't really care. Like I do it from a place of love. Like I'm trying to help you. But yeah, I think that a lot of the focus in the space is on, this is the right setup. This is the right strategy. This is my strategy. This is how I click some buttons and make a couple grand. And you should just learn my strategy so you can do it too. When in reality, it doesn't work like that, because it teaches codependence, right? You're not actually learning anything. You're learning what this person does. You're not learning why they do it. You're not learning what processes they went through to come to this conclusion. Most of the time, I'm definitely not trying to claim that no one teaches this. I'm just saying in general, it's not spoken about often. And so it gives this space a bad reputation, in my opinion, because a lot of people get burned. They think they're going to learn a skill set because they don't know what they don't know, right? They don't know that if I learn this strategy, that's actually not enough, because no one told them that. And so I think it's really important to be very vocal about the fact that, like, this is not an easy skill set. It is
Yeah.
a extremely, extremely valuable skill set, and it is
Yeah.
worth every penny and every hour that you put into it, because
Mhm.
after you learn it, especially the fundamentals, the foundations, foundational trading, the foundations you can then take and you can, I had a student who traded options with me. He learned technical analysis and options with me. One of my first students, actually, years ago. And I reached out to him like, "Hey, how you doing? Just checking in. Like, I haven't talked to him in a couple years." And he was
Mhm.
like, "I'm doing really great." He's like, "I wanted to say thank you for what you taught me with technical analysis." He's like, "I don't really trade options anymore, but because I learned those foundations, I was able to double my net worth just buying and selling shares using technical
Wow.
analysis this year." And I was like,
Yay, that's so
"Hell
great.
yeah." So it's that's the thing, is like, if you learn a strategy and that's the only thing you know, then you
Mhm.
can't take that information and apply it elsewhere. If you learn
Mhm.
foundations, you can take it in any vehicle, options, futures, buying, selling stocks, and you can apply that to whatever phase of life you're in, because maybe
Mhm.
you don't have the time that you used to have when you were day trading futures, and now you don't have that time. But if you have the foundation of knowledge, you can still participate in markets in a different way,
Mhm.
right? And so I think that, I don't know why, but I think that's just not talked about enough.
Yeah.
And I don't like selling people short. I don't like telling someone this is easy or you can do this in, 30 minutes a day. Once you learn it, you can,
Yeah.
but
Right.
not to get
Right.
there. Like it's
Right.
they're two different things.
Yeah, for sure. Let's switch to psychology. So we have all heard people or seen people that their attitude is life is out to get me. There's not enough money to go around, that type of mindset. Um, where does that come from? And did you struggle with that? And if you did, how did you change it?
So I actually did not personally struggle with that. And I think it was because from a young adult, um, I was surrounded by people who had that mindset.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's because I was homeschooled and I just wasn't really exposed to many kids growing up,
Yeah.
right? Like I was the nerdy homeschool kid, but I was surrounded by my family and my mom
Mhm.
who taught all of us, and that just wasn't something that was ever, I wouldn't say allowed, but it just like, my parents always taught, you get out of life what you put into it. Like
Mhm.
that was just literally what I was taught, and so that's what I thought. And then I
Mhm.
became an adult, and I was surrounded by friends and, boyfriend, whatever, who had this victim mindset, and I was just like, it was surprising to me because I had never really been exposed to it, and I was just like, "What do you mean, like, you can't do something?" And
Mhm.
I'm not trying. I definitely am not trying to, like, shame anybody by any means, and I understand, like, life is hard.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess it's just, I saw through my friends where that got them,
Mhm.
which was nowhere.
Mhm.
Right? And then I had other friends who had a very different perspective. Early on in network marketing, I had a friend who was delusionably, like, she had delusions of grandeur
Mhm.
of what her business would look like. Right?
Mhm.
She was like the most, like, vision forward person I've probably ever met. She's like,
Mhm.
my business does millions of dollars. Like, she would say it with, like, straight up confidence. And then it was crazy because, and in the beginning I was kind of like everyone else. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. And then over the years, like, she hundreds of thousands and then millions. And I'm just like, I kind of saw this progression, and I was
Mhm.
a young adult at the time.
Mhm.
So it took some years for me to, like, for that to sink in, but I saw it firsthand. I
Mhm.
saw the group where they were like, "I can't do this. Life's out to get me, and I just have no control." And then I saw the other group that was like, "I will do this. This is exactly
Mhm.
what my life is gonna look like in 5 years, and I'm gonna pair that with the work that needs to be done to get there, but I absolutely am going to, like, clutch onto that vision of this is exactly where I'm going."
Mhm.
And that divide, and that, me seeing both sides of that, obviously I was like, well, this one works, so I'm just going to do that one. And so I would say even through my whole network marketing, my other entrepreneurial ventures, even when I was just a bartender, and had literally no idea what type of business I would have. I never thought of teaching trading, like, ever. I just thought it was like, this is fun for me. Or even that I would be good enough to like really make money on it. It was just like for fun. It was this hobby. But I had this in my head locked for my entire adult life that like I will have a way to have flexibility with my time, have flexibility with my finances, have flexibility with who I spend my time with and when. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but literally everything I did, I'm like, I'm taking whatever steps that I can towards that goal because I know it's going to happen. So it's that like delusional belief. And it just, I will say part of the thing that I think helped that was actually like cutting off relationships with those types of people. Right. Like that's actually funny enough. That's actually why I divorced my ex-husband, is because he had this mindset of like, I just can't do it. Everything's out to get me. I can't control it. I can't change it. And as I kind of, in my early years, when I was kind of seeing this difference in paths that people were taking, my friend and everyone else, and I was like, I want to go that way. And he was very much that way. And I was just like, this just won't work.
Yeah.
Like, it won't work. If I'm going to do it, I can't be around this 24/7.
Right. Right.
And obviously, that's how it ended, but it wasn't a pleasant experience to be like, there's nothing wrong, but also we're just completely different people.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Let's do a lightning round. You ready?
Ready.
First ticker you ever traded?
AMD.
Best trade of the last 12 months without the dollar amount, just the setup.
I'm tempted to say the Rocket Lab one. I mean, that one just, you were in that one too. I'm still in it, but like, that was just a crazy, like, beautiful consolidation under resistance, like right before earnings. It had been chopping for like months. And like, I have my own view of the space in general, but then it jumped up like 30-40% in like 2 days. Like, like just the underlying, not even the contract. And I was just like, it was a great trade.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, when I saw that we were both in it, I was like, oh, right on. Confirmation.
Great minds think alike.
What's the worst habit you had to break as a trader?
Worst habit or tab? What'd you say?
Habit.
Worst habit. Over trading. Learning to be patient. That was the hardest one. Because, going from futures trading where you're taking them, very frequently, to going to swing trading, and sometimes you don't enter a trade for a week or 2 weeks. Sometimes like you're waiting for it. That was really hard.
Right. Indicator you used to swear by and you now ignore.
I don't think I have one. I used to use Bollinger Bands, but it wasn't like I didn't use them all the time. Really, I stick with a couple different moving averages. And then Fibonacci's. That's really what I've kind of stuck with for the majority of my trading.
Okay.
Yeah.
One book, one podcast, one person every trader should know.
That's that one. The Mental Game of Trading, by Jared Tendler, is the book that I read that I was trading futures at the time, and it clarified so many things for me and definitely helped me to like step back from my emotions and really view it in like an analytical perspective versus, just being in the emotions, I guess. Yeah.
And coffee or no coffee before the open?
Always coffee.
Always coffee.
Before and during. Espresso with some hot water. That's what I want.
Okay. In our wrap up, for the woman listening right now who's at the very, very beginning, she's curious, maybe a little scared, definitely overwhelmed. What's the one thing you want her to do this week?
Really think about why you're interested in trading. What do you want to change in your life that you think will be improved or solved by learning a skill set that can bring in some extra money to your family? Why do you want that? What will you experience in your life? What will change in your life or not change in a negative way if you don't learn this skill set? Where are you going to be in 5 years if you don't learn a skill set? Maybe it's trading, maybe it's not, that will improve your family's financial life. That's where it always, always, always needs to start. Why are you doing this? And if you have a strong enough reason why, then you are so much more willing to put the time in that is needed and put the hard work in that is needed to learn the skill set. Because if you don't have a reason why, you're like, oh, I just want to make some money and I don't really know why, money sounds good, you won't be able to withstand the difficulties of trading, because it is very difficult. But if you have a why, you absolutely, the second thing I would say is, if you have a strong enough why, is you are 100% capable of learning it if you don't give up. And if you ideally, I will just say you can learn it if you don't give up, period. You can learn it much quicker if you have either access to someone who can walk you through the nuances of these 1,000 questions that will come up just from you watching a video about support and resistance. You'll have so many questions. So if you have access to someone that can answer those questions, your timeline of learning will collapse greatly and you'll learn it much quicker. But regardless of whether you have someone that will help you learn or teach you or mentor you or not, you still can do it. You just have to keep going.
Yeah. So tell us, where can people find you and foundational trading?
I'm mostly on Instagram. I really haven't done many other social medias, but it is Marilee Grace, Marilee Grace. And then Foundational Trading Academy, the link is in my bio, but it's kind of a long one. It's foundationaltrading.mn, like as in M as in Marilee, N as in Nancy, mn.co. And that's where I do periodic enrollments. So I actually don't have open enrollment other than 1 week every month. So it's actually May 25th will be the next enrollment for 1 week. And that just, if you go to the website, it will have an option to join now. If you visit it at any other time, it'll require you to sign in if you're a member. But once a month I do open enrollment, and then you can join that way if you want. There's a couple other things on my website, like a masterclass kind of walking through the basics, just to kind of give you a feel of what we go over in FTA, why it's important. But even if you're not ready to join FTA, just shoot me a message. If you have a question, I'm happy to answer it. Follow me, watch some videos, do whatever sounds best to you.
Good. Yeah. And I will link that below. One last question. A year from today, what's the version of your life that you're working towards that you don't have yet?
I saw this question when you sent me, kind of the questions, and I was like, it was a struggle. I'm not going to lie. There's very few things that I want for in my life right now. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. But one thing that did come up was I would love to do more in-person connection with my community, right? It's an online community. We do calls, obviously, like I know these people through a screen. But I think in-person connection is extremely valuable, especially when someone, when we all have the same kind of goal, the same sort of, thing that we're working towards. So that's one thing that I would like to bring into life next year is actually bringing my students all together in real life.
Great. I have so enjoyed our conversation, Marilee. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And for everybody, for everybody watching, please like and subscribe. Leave me some comments. You know what? If I was a new trader and I wanted to go into stocks or options, I would do this foundational trading. I've researched Marilee, and she's the real deal. So I would be happy to learn from her. And thank you so much for watching, and we'll see everybody next time.